All right, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of Secrets in the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie Doe and James. James, I forgot to ask you how you say your last name.
Toever.
Vancouver.
Easiest
James
way
Vancouver.
to know is it rhymes with Vancouver.
I love it. I could do that. Vancouver. Yeah. James Vancouver. Now, James, I know because he actually did a bike fit for me and I recorded it and put it on my Facebook page. It was a long, and actually I'm going to try and share that because when James did his bike fit, we recorded the whole thing and there was a lot of really cool information there that he explained about bike fits. Anyways, I thought it was pretty exceptional and I've got to download it and put it up on YouTube. So I will share that link if that happens before this episode airs. But here's a little bit background of James. So James grew up in a small town on Prince Edward Island, where his interest in competitive sports started at a young age. Now, in 2003, this love for cycling started when James signed a professional contract to ride for a UCI mountain bike team based in Prescott, Arizona. I'll have to find out how he got from Canada to the United States, but that's why we're here, because we're going to hear the whole story.
Absolutely.
Now, following his 2003 cycling season, James gave up full-time racing to pursue his undergrad degree in Ottawa. And that's where he is now. What he's done is he went back to school. He became a physio, and now he's one of the highly regarded guys who does bike fits. And the reason why is because he has a high understanding of cycling because of his he's got a lot of pro athlete accolades. So we're going to go through that. But as a bike fitter, it's always important that you are a cyclist and you understand the dynamics of the body on a bike. And that's where when James did my bike fit, there's a lot of things that he talked about that I actually have a bike fit certification, but I don't practice it. It's been about probably 10 years. But I have that and I use it when I coach, as I like when I eyeball people, and then I send them to James for the official bike fit. So welcome, James, to the podcast. I'm super excited to talk about your whole background.
Yeah, absolutely. Super, super happy to be here and share me.
Yeah, so James doesn't like talking about himself, but we're going to pull out all the goods. And before we get into it, we were just talking about his mural in the background. If you're catching this on YouTube, this guy, what's his name?
So his name is Robbie.
Robbie, that's all you need to know.
Can be found on Instagram under Fall Down G.
Fall Down G. Anyways, he's doing all these amazing murals and I was just like, wow, that's super cool. Anyways, so a little bit on that because people are probably going to ask. All right, so James, I always love to start the podcast about how did you get into cycling? Because
great question. So my cycling career began because of an alpine ski coach on Prince Edward Island. So I grew up completely rural Prince Edward Island. Couldn't even see another house from where I grew up. Very, very like in the woods, basically. So great place to learn how to mountain bike. But the phenomenal thing is I lived beside the only small provincial alpine ski hill on Prince Edward Island.
I was going to say, they actually have a ski hill.
Yeah, they actually have a little teeny tiny ski hill. And, you know, as a kid growing up on PEI in the wintertime when there's nothing to do, you spend all day, every day skiing. So that eventually materialized me to going to ski school and then getting into the alpine race program. And no one really told the young James that an Olympic alpine ski racer would never come from Prince Edward Island. So I was like 100% all in on downhill ski racing.
Oh, yeah.
didn't take me long to do a couple races in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia on slightly larger hills to find out that I wasn't really good at alpine ski racing at all. But
Oh,
it was one of my coaches who had introduced cycling, specifically road cycling, as cross training in the off season. And it just so happened one fall, he decided to load a bunch of us kids in an 18 passenger van and take us over to New Brunswick, Holy Mountain in Sussex, New Brunswick, to do a mountain bike race. And I won my cadet sport category and thought, hey, this was a little bit more fun winning. And parents not having a ton of money growing up, they were like, look, you got to pick, these are two very expensive sports. So then I kind of gravitated towards cycling a little bit more. Fast forward 2 years, my family moved down to Tennessee. So
that's how you got there. Okay.
So East Tennessee, obviously, and to this day, I would highly argue with anybody that East Tennessee, sort of Western North Carolina, Southwest Virginia, that little pocket where all of those states meet, has some of the best road riding in the world. So I was just lucky enough to be plunked down into this mecca of riding, and got hooked up with some a really fantastic local bike shop in Kingsport, Tennessee, called Rock and Road Bicycles.
Hey, that's a good name.
Yeah, which they're no longer there anymore. And it was myself and one of whom now is one of my best friends. We just started racing the whole Southeast circuit. 2 years later, when that shop went out of business, there was another a businesswoman entrepreneur from Southwest Virginia. She owned a bike shop, Highlands Ski and Outdoor Center, in Abingdon, Virginia. So we were kind of, my household would have been in the middle of like Kingsport and Abington, sort of geographically along the highway. And this woman had some money. She owned several Burger King chains and some steakhouses, and this bike and ski thing was just fun for her. So she put together this sort of regional elite team that now we had some funding and we had some minor bike sponsorship. We had an 18 passenger van, and we spent the next, 2 years driving across the country. Like, I kind of have to look back on it and wonder how my parents just let me go with complete strangers. Driving.
Oh, you got a couple friends in there. They'll be fine. Take care of each other.
Everywhere across. I'm pretty sure I've driven across the United States over a dozen times in the back of an 18 passenger van, and just racing bikes, going anywhere and everywhere that we could race our bikes and get noticed and compete against some of the best in the United States at that point in time.
So was this through high school?
Yep. So this was through high school. So yeah, competing. Obviously, in the summertime, my parents weren't that crazy to not let me go to school.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so I would have been grade 11, grade 12. And then once I graduated high school, I stayed locally and just kind of did some community college courses. But at that point in time, parents kind of realized that my main interest was cycling. So school was just the background noise, but I had to do something, and cycling was the full-time focus. And it was just, just such a great group of people. As I say, the guy I initially started with at Rock and Road Bicycles, he's still one of my best friends. He still lives down in Johnson City, Tennessee. But yeah, and then it just kind of went from there, doing bigger races, getting noticed by bigger teams and having bigger results, and it just snowballed.
So that's how you got onto your first UCI mountain bike team. But then is that where you ended up competing for Canada? Or was it
So
Canada after that, or was Canada before that?
yeah, so I think it was 2002, because all my racing up to that point has pretty much been in the United States. And it's
Right.
funny, there was this
Scout
we
from
well,
Canada saying,
so
excuse
so it's
me.
funny because I was doing so well in the United States, I was getting noticed by USA Cycling.
Right.
And it was kind of funny because we never, my parents, although my parents were down there for almost 20 years, I was down in the States for just a little over 6. We never took out citizenship. So legally, I could not race for USA Cycling, but we never told them that. So, and my dad kept on to kind of like not ruffle any feathers. My dad kept on just, a little bit here, a little bit there, make donations to the junior cycling fund of USA Cycling.
Mhm.
And they never asked, so we never told them. So I kind of started coming up through the USA Cycling program, doing some of these elite junior camps in Park City, Utah, in Salt Lake City, in San Diego, California, at the Olympic Training
Wow.
Center, just not saying anything.
Right.
But I would never, ever, ever go to nationals down in the US. And they always wondered why, is because if I actually performed well and got selected for the national team, they would find out that I'm not
Right.
an American, and then the jig would be up. So in 2002, I went up to Sun Peaks Resort and did the Canadian. So that would have been at that point in time, I would have been an under 23 Espoir rider, and I did the under 23 mountain bike national championships in Sun Peaks. Had a horrible race, broke my hand in the race, but it just kind of started to put me on the radar for the Canadian Cycling Association.
Oh.
And I had had a really great year in the Norba National Circuit as a young professional rider. And it always just shows you never know who's watching.
Oh
So at
yeah.
the end of 2002, my parents are like, okay, let's take the next step. And I joined the Pacific Sport Cycling Organization in Victoria, BC. And they were kind of at the time, and I think they still are, like a feeder for a lot of the national team programs.
Mhm.
So women's soccer, or men's and women's soccer, men's and women's rugby, field hockey, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So cycling as well. So I moved out to Victoria at the end of 2002, so September, trained with that organization that entire fall. And then literally the day I was packing my bags to fly home for Christmas, my parents were still down in Tennessee, I got a call from this random gentleman named Clément Capelier, and he was the director sportif of this new Marathi Honeywell UCI professional mountain biking team that was going to focus on under 23 athletes at the beginning of their under 23 career, in hopes of getting them on the world championships podium by the time they were finished their U23 category. So
Right.
I flew home for Christmas, spent Christmas with my family, ditched all my belongings in Victoria, flew down to Arizona right after Christmas, and then it was just full on from there.
Wow. So how much racing? Because this was like 1 year only.
Yeah, so that would have been, in January 2003, I landed in Phoenix, Arizona, was picked up from the airport, got whisked away up to Prescott, Arizona, which is about an hour, 15 minutes northwest of Phoenix. We're living in a house. It was a North American elite, or under 23 elite team. So, and it was in its infancy. So there was myself, and then there was the previous year's junior national champion mountain biking from Mexico. So it
Oh.
was Christian Cuesta Navarrete and myself and our director sportif from the Czech Republic. And we lived in a house, and yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. We raced the whole, so that sort of spring, we raced the whole Southern California, Arizona road racing circuit, Pro 1-2. And then soon as mountain biking season kind of came on, 1st of June, we started racing any Norba National, World Cup, or Canada Cup in North America, and then finished out the season in Europe racing the final World Cup and World Championships in Switzerland for Canada.
Oh, so you were, just a second, you were riding for him, but representing Canada at Worlds?
Yeah, so any World Cup event, you would race for your trade team, so your sponsors, and then any national team, whether or not, say it was Pan Am Games, Olympic Games, World Championships, all that stuff is raced for your country, and so you would be selected. So in 2003, mountain biking national championships was in Whistler that year. I won the under 23 category, so that gave me my automatic selection to the Canadian national team to then go to Lugano, Switzerland to race in mountain bike world championships.
Wow. So how come? So okay. So you show up to this house and there's only you and one other rider. Like, I don't know about you, but I'd be kind of like, I imagine there might be a couple other people that would be here.
And so, and so that was the plan. Like, so it was really cool. We had our money backer was Honeywell Industries International. So a lot of people are familiar with Honeywell as the thermostats on their wall, or a space heater or a fan, but there's so much more than that. And it was very bizarre how the circumstances of this team materialized, because Honeywell purchased Moradi. Moradi was a titanium bike manufacturer in the Czech Republic. And Honeywell purchased Moradi for their titanium manufacturing technology, which Honeywell wanted for their jet engine industry. And then I know.
Wow.
Really?
But
then they were like, oh, wow, there's a bike company too. So why don't we put together a team and put together a couple, North American riders, and we're going to try to bring the brand, the Moradi bicycle brand, to North America. So, they brought the brand, they were trying to get into bike shops, and, they did Interbike at Vegas, and it was just a big thing. And they were like, oh, well, we might as well have a professional racing team to kind of to give some street credit to these bicycles. And yeah, they were phenomenal bicycles.
But there's only two of you.
There was only two of us in the first year, and then plans were to the following years to have a professional road team,
right,
and start a junior program as well.
What happened?
So pressures
to your knowledge, what happened?
Great question. I think it was, I've always kind of said that almost anybody, yes, there's a certain amount of natural talent and ability, but almost anybody can be a pro endurance athlete if you have the headspace for it. And just ultimately at the end of the day, both myself and Christian, being away from family, being away from friends, he spoke pretty much primarily Spanish. I spoke only English. So two guys who are of the same age, same interest, couldn't really talk to one another very well. And just being on the road all the time and just being so isolated to do one thing and one thing only wasn't a healthy way to go about it. And both of us quit at the end of the year. He had won, and he won under 23 national championships in Mexico that year. I won under 23 national championships in Canada that year, but we were just both done. We were over it.
Yeah.
So I legitimately flew home from World Championships to Ottawa. I landed on a Friday, early September, and I was in the University of Ottawa registrar's office Saturday morning.
Wow. So were you thinking about all of this while you were out on the circuit? Like, this is it. I've done my bit, and now I think it's time to Like I've done a lot.
Yeah, and there were a
It's
couple
time to get back to
factors and
school.
decisions. Like, I mean, hindsight, if when I look back, maybe I should have taken a month just to decompress and like, and it was a
Yeah.
long, hard season. And unfortunately for me, my fitness kind of peaked. Unfortunately, my fitness that year peaked at national championships.
Hmm.
I think that was late July, and then it was just downhill from there. So like
Right.
finishing out 2 months of racing, traveling, just super, super stressful. Getting your butt whooped all the time doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
Um, there's a couple unfortunate problems through Sport Canada too that I was technically able to get some funding, but they kind of pulled the carpet from under me, so I didn't get any additional support.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, all the support went to the elite athletes who already had these big pro contracts, and they weren't the. Unfortunately, Canadian Cycling Association wasn't really set up at the time to help developing riders. It was more, we have this incredible set of elite athletes who are winning everything in the world.
Hmm.
Let's keep them going to keep Canada at the top of the sport. So I get it, but then there was this big gap in development because there was no riders coming up with no support.
Right. That
Um,
is a problem.
yeah, and I think so. And I was Rocky Mountain tried to pull me back in, and I kind of that's why I almost kicked myself. So about 6 weeks after I'd been back in Ottawa going to school, I got a call from Leslie Tomlinson. I don't know if you know the name. She's a very
Mm.
highly decorated, retired now, very highly decorated elite mountain biker from Canada, and she was running the Rocky Mountain Factory mountain bike team at the time.
Okay.
And we were talking back and forth, but I think even she could tell talking back and forth that I wasn't in it anymore. I was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is cool, but what's next in my life?
Yeah. Been there, done
Yeah.
that. Need to do it. So now, what were you so came back and started going to school,
Yep.
and at that point, what made you decide to go? I'm assuming you went into physiotherapy, right, at
So
Ottawa U.
So initially, so at the time, physiotherapy
Mm.
had now transitioned to a master's program.
Okay.
So I had to do your undergrad. So I did my undergrad in health science at Ottawa U.
Is that when you started, like that September? Is that when you
Yeah.
officially went back to school? Like
So it's funny.
started?
So yeah, correct. So September, I guess 2003 is when I went back to Ottawa U, and then spent my 4 years there. So graduated Ottawa U in 2007 with like my
Mhm.
bachelor's in health science.
Yeah.
Not really knowing what I wanted to do with a health science degree. Um, my mother, oddly enough, is she's retired now, an occupational therapist,
Oh yeah.
and she kind of had an idea that I would like to help people. So she kind of piqued my interest in shadowing some healthcare providers. And I had a couple friends who were physios at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, really loved their gigs. So put my applications in, and Queens decided to take me. So that would have been
That's
2000
not
and
so bad.
not so bad. Yeah. So I started physiotherapy at Queens in 2009. I took a couple years off in between, just working and not really worrying about too much because I'd worried about a lot for a long time. But
Right.
then, yeah, so, and then finished Queens Physiotherapy in 2011. So almost just hit my 10-year anniversary, which is wild.
Yeah. So is that where you specialized in bike fit, or did that come afterwards?
No, so it's funny. I'd say this to clients all the time. If you had asked me back in school if I wanted to be a bike fitter, I'd be like, that doesn't exist. It was not even close to being on my radar. When I
Right.
was racing, bike fitting wasn't even a thing. You disassemble your bike, fly across the country, build it back together, and say, yeah, that feels okay, and go race. So it was never on my radar. Even oddly enough, to this day, I have never had a bike fit myself.
Isn't that funny? Because that's
Isn't that
kind of
funny?
the way I feel. I'm like, tweaking my own bike because I kind of
Yeah,
know what to look for. And then I'm like,
yeah,
really, Sylvie, you need some help because you
yeah,
can't figure it out on your own. Because It's so hard.
It's a lot of yeah, nuances. I mean, I don't claim to be a complete expert. I learn every day with every
Yeah.
fit. So I think it's yeah, it's a bit of a science and a bit of an art form mixed into one big bag.
Yeah. I think you could do this because I'm like, if I were to do it, well, my thing is when I came to you, it was my cleat positioning. And if anybody has ever tried to adjust your own cleats, first of all, you need time to do it. You need to be on a trainer. You can't be out on the road adjusting your cleats and trying to figure that's what I was doing. I'm like, I'll just
Yeah,
adjust them and then they're not tight enough. Then they move and you're like, oh my God, I can't do this. And you know that they need to be moved because your knee is hurting. And
absolutely.
right. I'm like, I said I was self-medicating myself for years, like with massage and strength training because I knew my bike cleat positioning. And that's where I thought it started from, which I think it was. But it could have been anything, could have been saddle height,
Well, and so
positioning.
that's what actually got me into fitting.
Yeah.
So after I graduated Queens, spent a year in Kingston, then spent a year in Toronto practicing traditional sort of sports rehab, then moved to
Mm.
Ottawa. And it was just a fluke that I was working at a private practice out in Riverside South, and I happened to meet a fairly high level cyclist at the time in Ottawa for traditional rehab. You know, hey, my knee hurts when I ride a bike. I was like, okay, yeah, I used to ride. And just through the regular practitioner patient relationship, he was like, oh, wow, you really did ride. And I was like, yeah, I really did ride.
Like you really did right. Wow.
And so he started sending me more like cyclists. So I started to develop this following of cyclists, but it
Oh,
got
okay.
frustrating because here I knew all of the physio knowledge and I would
Right.
treat them and I would rehab them and give them a strength and conditioning program and they would get better and then they would do riding again and
Yeah.
like high mileage volume and
Mm-hmm.
they're right back into my office. So I'm like, okay,
Right.
I can treat the symptom, but I'm not getting the source. So then
Right.
I'm like, okay, there's obviously got to be something to this bike fitting thing. And that would have been 2013. So then I started researching, okay, where can I learn how to do bike fits?
Right. So where did you get certified?
So
Because I know like
I,
where I got certified
yeah,
was Bike Fit. It doesn't, the same owner doesn't own it anymore.
yep.
And that was like 10 years ago when I got certified. I had to go to the
So
States.
yeah, so exactly. That's exactly what I
Yeah.
had to do because even today, Bike Fit, to my knowledge, anyways, is the oh, I shouldn't so that say that. So Bike Fit still offers education levels in Canada,
Mhm.
but also I've been recently told that the University of Montreal is actually
Oh,
offering, I believe, a master's program in biomechanics and bike fitting.
oh, no, that's
So,
cool.
yeah,
Hmm.
so it's like, you know, if a kinesiologist was super passionate about it, maybe if they
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to do a master's in, or I mean, whatever, if you take engineering as an undergrad, but your passion is this, you can actually follow through and do a master's in bike fitting at I believe it's the University of Montreal.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and I think
Hmm.
that's just new this September. Um, but yeah, at the time in 2013, there was Bike Fit.
Yeah.
They were the only ones, and then it was everything down in the States. So I went down to Boise, Idaho.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and met Tom Coleman, who
Oh, I've
he's
heard of that name.
yeah, not many people have. He was kind of right
Mm.
at the forefront of everything, kind of along the same times as like Andy Pruitt was putting together Retool with well, not specialized then, specialized eventually acquired Retool. But and so Tom had come up with a software program called WN Precision, or it's right now it's wobblenot.com. And it from a physiotherapist perspective, what I really appreciated, it was an exhaustive physical assessment. So you were looking at joint range of motion, you were looking at
Mm,
bony lengths, you were looking at the rider off the bike first to understand their movement patterns, and
mm-hmm.
then matching it to the rider and whatever bike they brought in, because you were taking into account the specific bicycle they brought in, whether or not it was a mountain bike, a triathlon bike, you name it. And yeah, he had a really cool system. He basically figured out through years of data testing with Olympic athletes how to properly fit an individual based off of muscle EMG firing. So he would have riders out in the real world, and he'd be driving behind them with all his sensors. This is a while ago, so it's kind of, he was like leading edge at the time, and
Wow.
he was analyzing muscle contractions based on
Mm.
different parts of the pedal stroke to optimize a rider's position.
Hey, let's take a mini break because I have to tell you about this unique online cycling coaching program that's going to blow your mind. This is your fast and easy way to become a better and stronger cyclist by joining an online 16-week cycling training program geared towards improving cycling skills. My name is Sylvie, your podcast host and level 3 national cycling performance coach. I have been coaching this unique 16-week program every winter since 2006. Why did I create this unique 16-week program? Winters were harsh and still are here in the region. No one likes or liked to work out alone in their basements until the world of online cycling really took off last year during COVID, which has been a game changer for cyclists worldwide. So why would you sign up to a 16-week online road cycling training skills program when you could be riding inside? Well, here's the thing. There's this little known thing called the 4 key pedal strokes. Hardly anyone is talking about, but when you learn and use them, you will see a huge difference in your cycling performance, not to mention impressing your friends and yourself. First, why are you training on a trainer this winter anyways? What are your goals? Do you want to get faster? Could it be moving from 18 kilometers an hour to 20 kilometers an hour? Do you want to win that sprint? Are you looking to get stronger on the hills? Do you want to now be the first to the top, not the last? Is it your endurance base building? Do you want to move into a faster ride group? Or maybe you're looking at getting into racing. Whatever the goals, they require specific skills that need to be taught and practiced in order to improve. I've coached over 500 cyclists in this program with a reported 5 to 20% increase in cycling fitness over the 16-week. Here are a couple of reasons that this program might be for you. You're still frustrated with climbing hills and keeping up with the pack. You like structure and scheduled training sessions. You like to train in your cycling zones. Your heart rate is all over the place. Possibly you want to optimize gear changing and learn a little bit more about that to become more efficient. You would like coaching feedback on technique and form. Joining a cycling skills program like the 16-week program can provide more benefits that will help drastically improve your cycling fitness through focused training in your heart rate zones, hill climbing, speed, endurance, while building up fitness through the 16 weeks of periodized winter and strength training program. Go to 16wkroadcycling.ca. That's 16wkroadcycling.ca for all the details and to join today. The program starts in December. Now, back to our episode. Holy shit.
And it was like a week-long course, 12 hours a day, one-on-one, just him and I fitting athletes. And it was a lot on the brain.
I bet. Great.
But, and he's still in the business. He's getting into some really cool IMU, inertia measuring unit technology that tracks body movement in 3D, something like, he'll probably send me a message after this to say it's better than what I'm saying, but something like 1,000 measurements per second in 3D space. So yeah, he's still pushing the limits, but he's not a very well-known person in the world, but he's an incredibly well-known person in like northwestern United States.
Okay.
He's worked with, I mean, gosh, if you could name a handful of Olympic or professional or world tour riders from the United States 5 to 10 years ago, and he's worked with every single one of them.
Yeah,
So,
because it really
and he's
does.
cool because he's all about the process. He's not about the hey, look at me for the fame. He's about every rider that comes through his door is the world champion in that moment. So, yeah.
Well, when we're talking about world champions, I mean, a fraction of a change could mean a lot in time, where for us, it's probably more comfort, like, yep. I want to get rid of that pain, where there is more like performance driven. Like, how can you get that extra?
For sure. That's the cool thing I see. It's like, I love the variety I see. I will see someone who just purchased a brand new bike and wants to prevent injury. They have no symptoms. I see people who have problems.
Oh, that's a great way to start.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then you see people who are looking for that 30 seconds faster over an Ironman.
Competitive edge.
Exactly.
You're like, hate to tell you, but a little less poundage might help.
As I always say, as long as the body can match their goals, we can make it work. But if their body flexibility, mobility doesn't match, there's other work to be done. It can't all be solved on a bike fit.
That's right. How many conversations a week do you have on that?
Let's just say if I had a quarter for every one, we probably wouldn't be talking right
now. It's kind of like that, right? It's like, how can I get faster?
It's been a nice ride, and like I think people appreciate the racing knowledge. I think people always appreciate, regardless of your industry, that if you can you've walked the walk. So you know when an athlete comes in and says, yeah, I ride 35 hours a week, and it's like, yeah, I remember those days and what it feels like and the punishment your body takes. So yeah, I think it's definitely helpful from that side of things.
So right now you have your own website. So it's
to be launched within a week.
Oh, Physio Pro Fitter.
So physiobikefitter.com.
Sorry, physiobikefitter.com, which will probably be launched by the time this one goes out. So make sure you check it out. Now, so this is your own business moving forward? You're renting space in a clinic.
Correct.
Okay. So how can people find you?
Yeah, for sure.
And make appointments.
Yeah, a couple different ways. So until the website is up and running, in which case people will be able to do simple online booking and see my entire availability.
That's good.
You can check out Active Health Hintonburg, Active Health Institute Hintonburg.
Okay.
They can call the office, call into reception, book an appointment through our reception. I can be emailed directly at my name, jamesvantoever@gmail.com. People can find me on Instagram at physiobikefitter. They can drop me a message through there. And then, yeah, as I say, and hopefully fingers crossed, it's been a long time coming, but in a week or two, physiobikefitter.com.
So that's where they can go find you and then book themselves in.
They can book themselves. There's lots of, frequently asked questions that I get asked almost every time, all answered. It goes through the whole process. It's got all the information. And you can still contact me directly. You will still be able to contact me directly through the website for any additional concerns or questions people have. But yeah, it'll kind of be a one-stop shop to handle everybody's needs, hopefully.
Well, automating is the way to go for like just saving time, period.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad to hear that you're going that way, because I know I said I had to book myself in for an additional bike fit.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. It did eliminate a lot of problems that I was having with my knee, but I feel like there's still some tweaking to be done. And it's funny enough that my saddle stem keeps dropping.
Yep.
And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like,
Yeah.
look in the mirror. I'm like, holy
Yeah,
shit.
and I think every, like, that's one big thing I always tell my clients is bike fitting is never one and done.
Mm,
Um, unfortunately only get to see an athlete or a cyclist at one point in time, and I have to base my fit off of my assessment on that day. And
right.
who knows if this time of year, if a cyclist come in and they're transitioned a little bit more strength and training, and they're
Mm,
tired from a gym session, or they're restricted in their movement because they haven't worked out in 6 months, and they come in and this is how I see their movement patterns.
right.
Unfortunately, their bike fit today is going to be based off of that. So I always,
Ooh,
always, always encourage people, you do get 4 months free unlimited follow-ups with me, because I do like to people to be happy. My motto is cycling should be self-inflicted pain only, not equipment and setup inflicted pain. So
all
I
right.
do
So,
think follow-ups are always necessary.
okay. So maybe you can share with us your favorite questions
Oh
that are
God.
part of your Q&A that you hear all the time that maybe I haven't heard. Like, what are some of them? Can you name like maybe
Probably
one
the
or
the
two?
best one is, do I need to bring my bike? Which, I mean,
Oh,
granted,
yeah, Jesus.
granted, based on their previous bike fit experience, they may have been fit on a fit bike. So, but as yes, I always say,
Oh, I suppose.
yeah. So
Because
you
then
never
they're
you never know. I always get a little chuckle out of that though, because no matter what, people always leave with their bikes adjusted. There
right.
are certain fitters out there who will give you a set of measurements that you then go home and transfer it on your own bike, which
Whoa.
then, I mean, yes, you're certainly introducing error in that method, but if it
Mm,
works for them, great. Uh, what else? Um, I, One thing, so I have, since we saw you, Sylvie, I have moved locations. So I used to be
yeah.
out towards the east end of Ottawa. I am now
Mhm.
at 250 City Center. A lot of people are familiar with Beyond the Pale Brewery or Artisan Bakery.
Oh, yeah.
Big question now is, where am I? Because when people get to 250 City Center, it's just this big long complex. People think I'm beside the brewery.
I
Eurosports
wish I
Bike
was.
Shop, right? Eurosports Bike Shop used to be just down the road here, so people think of that, so they don't
Yeah.
know where I am. But if you're standing and looking at this giant 250 City Center complex, there's an office tower on the right-hand side, and I'm on the third floor of the office tower.
Oh, you're in the office tower.
Yep.
Okay. See, like I've never been in the office tower for anything.
Nobody
Never
has
realized.
ever. And a lot of
It's like,
cyclists, as I say, a lot of cyclists, Beyond the Pale is a very popular hangout post
yeah,
Gatineau Park Loop ride. So
yeah.
they always go looking down that end. But no, I'm in the office tower, and the complete opposite end of the plaza from Beyond the Pale.
And I suppose the entrance is around back.
Nope, it's
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 off.
right it's right on the front of the building. Yeah, you can't miss it.
Oh,
The big
oh,
double
okay.
door. Yeah.
So that's where you're going to be for a while.
This is where I will be for the foreseeable future. Yeah, I got a phenomenal space. My joke is I used to fit bikes in a closet, and now I'm in a beautiful corner office. So I got a lovely view, lots of daylight.
Oh,
Even my
that
even
makes
my
it.
wife's even my wife said after I changed locations, my mood was better coming home, is because I can see the light of day all day long. So
Oh, well, I
it's cool.
suppose you have a good view of the Ottawa River then.
Yeah, so if I
kind
look
of.
directly above my computer screen, I am like looking straight to Quebec. And then if I look off to my right, I'm looking straight
Oh,
towards Preston Street.
well, you are on a corner. That's
Yeah,
nice.
it's very
Good
nice.
negotiating. Yeah.
Yeah, he's right. As I
Well,
say, I
yeah.
must be
So,
doing something right in the world.
well, you deserve it because a lot of people talk very highly of you in Ottawa for your bike fits, myself included. So you are one of the guys to look for in
Yeah,
this
thank you.
region. And I don't know if you do anything online. Do you do anything online? Can you do anything? Bike fit
So
us
not
online?
necessarily online. I always like to see people in person. There's so much more you will gain from having person in office.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, probably next summer, provided the world behaves for us all a little bit better, I'll probably actually look to start doing some mobile fittings. So
Oh,
coming to people's houses. I had one client this year where just her circumstances, she didn't have a way to come to the office, and it was quite far for her to ride. So we went and did it at her house. It was lovely. We did it poolside in her backyard. So it was kind of like a really cool change of pace. But I think, yeah, just, so many people are working from home now. Being able to come to people and making it a little bit more accessible for more people, that'll be exciting.
mm,
Um,
price it accordingly.
yeah, exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
travel will be extra for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm sure if you want to fly him out, he'll go anywhere. Just kidding.
Well, it's funny, I've just through my social media, and it shows you the power of social media, and it's
Yeah.
something if you've never got into it. And granted, I'm not even great at social media. I'm very lackluster in my posts, but the few quality posts that I try to put out there, I've had interest from Toronto and Montreal to
Oh.
go and do clinics. So I'm kind of going back and
Oh.
forth with this woman in Toronto now, who she's gonna organize several members from her cycling club, and we'll just pick a spot and pound out maybe 6 to 8 fittings on a weekend in Toronto, and just sort of start kind of branching out my network. I get a ton of, and granted, I haven't really spent too much time searching fitters outside of Ottawa. I know
Mm-hmm.
Luke very well. He's a great guy
Yeah.
down at the Movement Company. I know
Yeah.
Jesse very well.
Mm-hmm.
He's the fitter at Bushdaka. Awesome guy.
Well, I think
Uh,
it's just like the three of you that
Pretty
people
much
really
now.
talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And Jesse's doing some great things. He's kind of capturing that online market with his,
Yeah.
yeah,
He's
my
got an,
VeloFit, his
yeah.
artificial intelligence software, which is
Mm-hmm.
super cool idea.
Yeah.
But I get emails from people, Montreal and Toronto, all the time,
Mm-hmm.
asking me to find them a fitter in those locations with similar like
Oh, I see.
experience,
Right.
the professional cycling, the physiotherapist, et cetera, a fitter
Mm-hmm.
who's been fitting for almost 8 years now, and I don't know of anybody in those cities who fits that category.
There's got to
So
be somebody in
there
Milton.
has to be, right?
There
It's
has to
just,
be.
put it this way,
Yeah.
not on my priority list to find those people yet.
Like, I'll ask around.
With a 3.5-year-old and a new 6 month
Oh,
old.
yes.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
you're yeah, not a new daddy, but a new
New
second
daddy,
child,
second
new
time
daddy.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. How is
So,
that going?
oh, fantastic. Yeah, we have a little boy second time around. So we got the little girl first, and the little boy, and
Oh, sweet.
yeah, they're doing phenomenal. It's a ton of fun, time consuming, which is great. I wouldn't
It's the
change it for the
family
world.
thing.
Yeah, but I mean, kudos to my wife Carolyn. Like, as busy as I am in the summer months, she still lets me ride my bike. She still
Well,
lets me get it. So yeah,
is she getting in
she's
her
a saint.
stuff though?
Pardon me, sorry?
Is she getting in her stuff?
It's a balance. She absolutely gets in her sport.
Good, good, good. Good for you. Carolyn, make sure you
Exactly.
get your stuff in, whatever it
Exactly.
is, a little jaunt around the block or,
She's a competitive ultimate player.
oh,
Yep.
oh yeah.
Yep.
I
She,
used to be a competitive ultimate player
her
before
team,
I took up mountain bike racing.
another contact sport almost, right?
Well, you know what? I left ultimate because and I did it in 2000,
Okay.
99 and 2000. Well, that was my competitive Stella stint.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, and then I left it. I was just like friends of mine were tearing ACLs, concussions, and I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna move on from this sport. And the competitive side was just too much. Too much.
Well, it's
Too much of
I
one
find
thing was just, yeah.
and it's funny. This is what I find with cycling. Like, I can't tell you how many crazy ambitious cyclists or triathletes I get, and you get talking to them, and their sport background is something harsh, physically demanding, football, hockey, that they just cannot play, or they
Yeah.
don't really want to play at a high level
Mhm.
anymore, and they're channeling all that focus to endurance. Like, one of my clients, I think he played university football in Quebec, and this year he was fourth overall. Like, he's an age grouper, but he was fourth overall at the Muskoka half Ironman, and qualified for world championships. Like, he was
Wow.
beating over half of the pro field, and this is like his second year doing it. And he's just this big, strong, take nothing from nobody type of attitude. So
It's the
it's
mental toughness, I
huge.
would guess, that would just drive
That's what
him.
I said. I truly am of the belief that yes, there is athletic ability that you need to possess, but for endurance sports, if you have mental fortitude and mental strength
Mm-hmm.
just to get out there and keep going, you will do well in the sport, an endurance sport.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
For
yeah,
sure. Wow. So now I'm just going to ask you one last thing.
sure.
What's do you have any future plans like for expansion? Like, I know you just got in here
Yep.
and I know you're settling in, but do you have any kind of,
What's the 5-year, 10-year goal?
well, like, let's just say 5,
Yeah,
now that you're kind of getting like interest in other places, do you have
for sure.
something that you've kind of putting
Um,
together in your mind?
I think for me, no matter what, no matter how small or big I get, is the quality. So I was very lucky,
Mhm.
the quality of the product I'm putting out there. So I was very lucky this summer because things got so incredibly busy that I had
Yeah.
another. So, like, in the middle of the summer, I had a 2-month wait list. Like,
Wow.
people would buy a bike in July and message me and say, "Oh, James, I'm so excited. I just got my bike. Can I come in next week?" And I'm like, "Sorry,
You're
I'll
like,
see you in 8 weeks." And I mean, so, and then unfortunately, these people would have to go somewhere else to another
yeah.
fitter, which is not a good problem to have. But I was fortunate this summer to have Alex Banville, who's a young triathlete. He will probably turn pro Ironman next year. He's a kinesiologist. He just started his master's in sports psychology at Ottawa U. So he came on with me.
Oh,
When he was finishing his kinesiology degree, he interned with me at the clinic for 8 months, learning fitting.
oh,
And
so
then
this
and
is at
only
the other
then,
location?
yeah, but then he came over with me. So he interned with me at Performance Sports Therapy, but then he came over to Active Health Institute, and he
Yeah.
did a phenomenal job. Like, he really picked up. And same, he's the type of guy who can walk the walk. He competed at half Ironman World Championships at St. George this year.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the body. He knows everything, how to assess and look at people. So yeah, he was a godsend. Um, but yeah, if things continue the way they are, two of us will not be able to keep up. So it's like,
With
and
all the people getting into biking, that's the thing. And then they get
it's
the bike and it's just
yeah.
like, it's not really set up right. Why am I so
And it's
much
a really
pain?
tricky occupation to find that right individual, because
Mm.
they have to have some riding street cred. They have to know the body, and they have to know how to almost work on a bike head to toe. Because some of these
Right.
bikes that come in are just head scratchers. And if you've
Say
never
it.
had,
Say it. They just came out of the garage, right?
well, not even just that, it's some of these, like, some of these hyper bikes that are coming in, these
Oh,
$15,000 plus bikes,
oh,
you don't want to trust with just someone who's never really worked on a bike. And Alex used to work at a bike shop as a mechanic too. So he like fit the mold. I was so happy to get my hands on him. But yeah, trying to offer that very high level service with the right people is a tough balance. My whole goal for this winter is really to get people in now, like
right.
ASAP. So I talked about the 4 months free unlimited follow-ups. Right now, I tell people, because I want you to be happy all along, I got your back into the spring. So don't think
Mhm.
because I do your fit now, I'm not going to follow up with you in the spring. Totally covered. But if I can chip away at the wait list now, there won't be so much when people start thinking about biking again. And so many people, you yourself, Sylvie, you have your Zwift stuff with your cycle fit chicks.
Yeah.
Like, get fit now. We got you covered until the spring. So even when you get off your trainer and
I'll
you
let
get
the
a
girls know.
tide, it's like people need to come now, so that the summer is just, you might not get your bike fit in the summer if you wait till the summer.
So
It's
I have a
crazy.
question then.
Sure.
Okay. So first question, how many fits can you do in a day? Is it just two
So in the summer we were doing 5.
a day?
So
Like you?
I would do 3 and Alex would do 2. So we were looking at about 25 to 30 fits a week.
Holy shit. So if like when I did mine, it was like 3 to 4 hours
Yeah, I've got it
a
down to,
person,
usually, as long as I don't get into any hiccups mechanically.
right?
By the time we chat, I do the full physio assessment, we do the
Right.
on-bike assessment, we do all the adjustments, and we
Mm.
prescribe home exercises. You're looking at 2.5 hours.
Oh,
If
that's good.
if I run into mechanical problems, that gets pushed to 3 hours, right?
Right. Okay.
And it's tough though, because it's like one after another,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and then if you're behind, then Alex starts a little bit behind. But we were a well-oiled machine this summer. So the
Oh,
space I'm
cool.
in is about 5 a day. This time of year, it's nice. I get a bit of a break. Right now, I'm doing 2 to 3 a day just by myself, while Alex is back studying at Ottawa U. Um, but yeah, I don't quite have the solution. I have thought about maybe eventually teaching, putting together a course, or just affiliating myself with some of the other established, highly regarded fitting outfits in the world, and being a course lecturer on bike fitting. Um,
I see a future in that.
Why not, right? Maybe,
Why not?
especially if it's always a challenge to get people in the off season.
Mm.
Maybe that's when you focus on more of the education side of things and courses, and go from there.
Well, that's where you use social media, do
For
little
sure.
educational reels and things like that. Now, here's my next question, because road to trainer, kind of different. I don't know. Would you say there's like a different fitting that you would do or would you kind of
Not
set up your,
necessarily, yeah, not necessarily in my mind a different fitting. I mean, I am of the school of thought that cycling indoors, even though it's your bike on a trainer, or cycling
Mhm.
outdoors, is arguably 2 different sports.
Yeah.
You see that in Zwift Racing League. There are people who can dominate
Mm.
in the Zwift Racing League internationally, and then you put them outside. And
Well, that
so,
comes down to technique. That is nothing. That's just straight
for sure.
smarts.
Yeah.
Skill.
But yeah, so not necessarily a different fit, but I mean, people all the time will experience one thing inside and another thing
Yeah.
outside, in which case minor adjustment has to be made for sure.
Yeah, because I find like well, basically sitting on your trainer in a very static like position the whole time, you know, with no movement, no up and back. You like, of course, your back's gonna hurt a little bit, your crotch might hurt a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. Like even just people think the way you weight shift going around a corner outside.
Yeah.
That is a
And your neck, depending
yeah.
on where you have your, like if you're looking too high up, too low on the monitors, things like that.
So many people with indoor training, they have their television mounted up. Like it's kind of like you would think you go to a gym, Good Life, Movati, and all the TVs are way up high for all of the cardio machines. So people go home, they're putting together their pain cave, and they think, oh, I need to mount my TV super high. And then they drop down in their aero bars, and then they're looking at the Zwift screen like that. Yeah. So yes, there are challenges indoors and outdoors, and yeah,
that's
it's a balance. I mean,
so
I've always said but it's a time thing. It would be phenomenal for me to evaluate someone in the clinic, adjust them in the clinic, and then for me to go on a bike ride with that person right away. And then you're getting real world feedback, because the test of my fit is not on the trainer in the clinic. The test of the fit is outside on the road, where you spend, well, most people spend 90% of their time on the bike. So
yeah, there have been times when I'm riding with girls from my club and I look at some of them, then I pull out my phone and I tape them from behind, and then I'm like, I just want to show you kind of what you look like, and you might want to put your seat post up like about,
well, and it's crazy, you know, I have this giant mirror to my left. It's like a full wall mirror, and people hop on the trainer, and a lot of times the first thing they say, I've never seen myself ride.
I tell people all the time, get yourself one of those cheap little $7 mirrors from Walmart and set it up beside you. And then take a look at your seat position, take a look at your foot position, your knees, like
like I think bike fitting is bike fitting can be complicated, but it can be a lot of common sense as well. And you know, doing a simple assessment in the mirror, an individual with you know, who's a little bit more in tune with their body might be able to pick up on things that should be corrected, and more importantly, can be corrected easily, such as seat height. Yeah, they might not be perfect, but they'll be closer to where they should be riding biomechanically.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why I was like, everybody, get yourself a mirror. I want you to look at yourself. And when I talk about pedal stroke, I want you to look at it.
Yeah, for sure. That instant feedback. But I mean, like I said, if we're cranking out 5 fits a day in clinic, I don't have time, unfortunately, to spend 5 hours with every client. But I've got some sneaky things up my sleeve for not too long that will allow me to analyze people's outside posture without me having to go with them. So that's super cool.
Yeah, you just let them sit on their bike, pedal for a couple minutes, take a look. Let's go start here.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So I am definitely going to get my girls thinking about fits if they've ever thought or, you know, been talking about it. It's just like, you know, getting your bike tuned up out of season as well. It's just like,
well, it's kind of like
so you don't have to wait.
Yeah, it's always the joke in the rehab world too, is everyone tries to rush in before January as well, because if they have some benefits left, right, everything resets in January, and you know, because I'm fortunate to be a registered physiotherapist, people can get their money back with the fitting because it's a physiotherapy assessment.
Ah, well, that is a good point. And
Yep.
there are still some people left with some benefits left.
Exactly.
So with that, this has been amazing. And
Yeah,
like I
thanks
said,
so much for having me.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that we were able to fit this in.
I know we've been
I've
going
been
back and
hounding you.
forth for probably 6 months, and summer was insane. So this works great.
Well, this is totally worth it because it's probably at a great time for you. Now you're in your new space.
Yep.
You're going to have your new automated setup so people
Booking
can
system,
book
yeah.
themselves in, no more back and forth. And that's so
Absolutely.
annoying. Eh? It's like you just look in, oh, I got it.
Exactly.
Set up for the week. So you said where to find you again. You're on.
Yep. So yeah, for sure. A couple ways. Physio Bike Fitter on Instagram. Send me a message. Send me a direct email, jamesvantuver@gmail.com.
Yeah.
You can get in touch via phone at the clinic, Active Health Institute, Hintonburg, 613-656-0187. And hopefully no more than 2 weeks, physiobikefitter.com.
Awesome. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at @SylvieDoe_cyclist. Now, I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. I hope you got some great content from this. Don't forget, you can watch this on YouTube as well if you want to see James in life, and also the beautiful mural behind. I'm gonna have to get that guy on my podcast.
Yeah,
maybe you can
cool, dude.
Connect me. And don't forget to share this with someone who you know, possibly local to us, who's been complaining about sore back, sore neck, sore arms, hands falling asleep, feet falling asleep, that James can probably easily help. And like he was saying, now is the time to do it while it's on the off season, and you can have a good on trainer on season.
For sure. Let's figure it out now.
All right. Thanks so much, James. And thanks to our listeners. Have an amazing day.
Thanks, Sylvie.